My name is Michelle Argridge Valentine from Civic Mike. I'm here with Chris Lewis, the Senior Management Analyst for Public Works for the City of Fairfield. We were given some questions at the May 2nd council meeting and requested to ask via video, and here we are today to do so. So, Chris, I'm going to ask you some questions, and then if you can just answer them, that would be great.
Absolutely.
Great. All right. So the first question is, can you confirm what the average assessment increase for LLMD 13 is?
Sure, no problem. Yeah, this information did go out on a recent flyer to the property owners in the district. And it is true that the average rate increase for single family parcels is only about $100 or $104 actually, if we want to be a little more exact. The current assessment rate for the majority of single family residents in North Cordelia is either $170 or $180 per year. Some of the newer developments currently have a much higher rate at $883 per year. So this mix of assessment rates brings the current average assessment to about $225 per year. Under the new proposed district, the average assessment rate is $329 per year. So that's an average increase of about $104 per year. And now I do want to, just say that since this is an average, there may be some property owners or parcels that they see there's a little bit more than that 100 or maybe just a little bit less, but this is the average increase for all single family, not commercial parcels, obviously, but just the single family residents in North Cordelia.
Great. Thank you, Chris. All right. So the next question is, just because someone has a bigger house or or a lot than someone else, why is their assessment larger? And don't they kind of use all the common areas equally? What was behind the choice in that?
Yeah, that is true. The lot size is considered in the new methodology put together by our engineers for the district. And since this is a very technical question, it does require a very technical response. So I did reach out to MBS, and I want to read what was posted on Civic Mike in response to a very similar question, but it does hit all the bullet points. So because not all parcels in each LLMD are identical in size and other characteristics, some will receive more special benefit than others. The formula used for lot size, building size, ADT, and land use has been devised to determine the proportional special benefit received by each parcel. Differing levels of special benefit can largely be attributed to differences in building size, lot size, and trip generation associated with land use. As building size, lot size, and average daily trip generation increase, parcels are considered to receive proportionately greater special benefit. This formula considers multiple factors to compensate for any disproportionality that may have resulted from relying exclusively on a single factor. And NBS takes this guidance on this topic from multiple instances where California courts have opined on special benefit analyses that have been challenged regarding this topic.
Great, thank you. And the next question, I know we've been asked a number of times as well, but definitely want to make it clear is, why has the city been pulling from reserves and needed a loan in LLMD 13? And some people are just finding out now.
Yeah, this is something that the city has and currently still acknowledges that this balloting process, the increases to the assessments really should have occurred several years ago. It should have occurred several years ago so that the increased assessments could be gradually phased in over several years, less impact to the property owners and their annual assessments. Now, while the cost of services would have still been borne by the property owners, regardless of which year the assessments were increased, we know and we do acknowledge that it really would have been more convenient and just quite honestly less confusing for property owners to pay the services over time, as they came up through their regular assessments rather than receiving this loan and having to pay in arrears essentially. So as of early 2021, we do have a new team in place to administer these districts. We took immediate action to notify council and the residents of this issue as soon as we discovered it. We began working on a plan to phase, to increase assessments just about a little over a year ago now to correct the course that we were currently on. And so in addition to that, we're making sure that we have more stringent internal controls, such as more frequent budget monitoring, long-term revenue and expense planning, and then to make sure that we're ensuring transparency and a more consistent form of community engagement, the City Council has recently approved the formation of a landscape oversight committee. That committee will be tasked with fiscal oversight and reviews of landscape management throughout the city.
Great, wonderful. All right. And then our last question is so North Cordelia was initially described as being in great shape. The budget was 3,400,000. They don't need 1.3 million. Why has that number ballooned so high and so fast? Of course, that was from a resident. That was a direct quote.
Sure, yeah. I believe I heard that this comment was floating around somewhere on social media. I haven't personally seen this comment, but I believe what this person was referring to was just the landscape contract amount, which I can confirm was $340,000 in fiscal year 2021. However, that is not the total amount of the entire district budget. So the district budget for fiscal year 2021 was actually $590,000 due to service cost increase and the $85,000 consulting fee, one-time $85,000 consulting fees over the last couple years. The budgets for fiscal year 21, 22 and 22, 23 were $630,000 and $755,000 respectively. These budgets include the administrative costs, the irrigation or water costs, and then all of the small repair projects that are not necessarily accounted for in the landscape contract. So even when we remove those one-time consulting fees of $85,000, and by the way, I don't think I said this earlier, the consulting fees were specifically for this Prop 218 balloting process. Even when we remove that one-time cost from the budget, the district is still not able to sustain services at the current levels because the current maximum assessment rates that the city can levy from the property owners is around $615,000. But the most recent landscape services bid that we received was $605 alone. Remember, we still have those admin costs. We still have those irrigation costs, which is, by the way, one of the largest expenses in the district. Water costs right now are about $115,000 per year. So what we're seeing across the city and in our nearby cities, Vacaville, Sassoon, across the board really is that cost for landscape services is really increasing on all fronts. So the new budget reflects the current and future states of landscaping services. The proposed budget is about 1.3 million. This budget includes sufficient funding for all the items in the district that the district is currently maintaining. Plus all the items that the district is responsible for, but there was previously no dedicated funding for. So for example, we have the proposed budget sets aside dedicated funding for regular and full maintenance of tree care every 3 years for the district, some 4,000 trees. And by that I don't just mean, the as needed walkway clearances or height clearances. I mean full pruning on a regular schedule for those 4,000 trees. The budget also dedicates funding for irrigation parts and repair. We have some aging infrastructure in that district, as with many of the LLMDs, since most of them were formed in the late 80s to early 90s. And then we have some trail maintenance funding for the walking paths throughout the North Cordelia district. And then finally, this is not an all-inclusive list, but finally, and probably a couple of the more important line items are the contingency and reserves. So that's about a total of 10% of the total operating budget. So while I acknowledge that this significant portion of this budget is for expenses and items that residents might not see immediate benefits for, because tree trimming only comes around once every 3 years. Reserves are only meant, they're meant to be built up over time for larger capital projects, and contingencies are only there if you need them, right? So I get that people aren't going to see the immediate effects or the immediate benefits, but this really is the proper and prudent way to fund this district to make sure that we have adequate resources when we need them, especially when it comes to unexpected repairs. And then this is also the best way to avoid this whole Prop 218 and balloting process in the future, especially since these proposed assessment rates include an annual CPI increase, which will help us to keep up with inflation over time rather than the stagnant assessment rates for a significant portion of this district that we've seen, not just in this district, but other LLMDs we have in the city. We're kind of modernizing everything and making sure that we're looking forward to the future to be able to take care of those expenses.
Great. Thank you so much, Chris.
No
And
problem.
just for this call and anybody who's watching, I just want to remind everybody that civicmike.com/Fairfield has a lot of information. There's videos, articles, the engineers reports. You can do a deep dive into any of this information. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to contact@civicmike.com. That will send an email directly to me. And I'm always happy to answer any questions that you think of. So thank you for anybody who is watching this. Thank you, Chris, for coming on
Thanks,
here and
Michelle.
answering these questions.